अपना
No, later.
Start.
Good evening, everyone. A very good evening to all the participants. And our today we have with us a very eminent professor, Al Saqib Khan Pathan, who's a professor of computer science and engineering. Currently, he is with the Independent University, Bangladesh, as an adjunct professor, and he has received his PhD degree in computer engineering in 2009 from Kyuhee University, South Korea, and BSc degree in Computer Science and Information Technology from Islamic University of Technology. He is also working on some multidisciplinary issues, and he is a recipient of several awards, best papers, and has several notable publications in these areas. So without any further ado, I request our eminent professor to kindly start today's session. So please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Am I audible? Can you hear me,
Yes,
everybody?
sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me share the screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Your screen is visible.
Okay, so let's start from here without any delay. There are some extra materials here. Okay. So welcome to my presentation. I set my today's title as Writing and Publishing Scientific and Technical Books and Book Chapters. How long it will take, I don't know, but I expect maximum 1 hour would be enough. Then you may have Q&A. So let me introduce myself, whatever is told there. First thing is, who am I and why I'm basically delivering this particular talk. To simply introduce, I have around 23 books so far, but both edited and authored volumes. One of the books has been translated to simplified Chinese language, so totally it would be 24, all international publications. And to have some idea of what type of books or what types of books, basically I work in these areas, computer science and engineering and information and communication technology, that is ICT. I actually kept the page open here, if you can see. So these are my books. Now, based on this experience, whatever I'll be delivering, that's completely my own experience, the way I started from 2009 and it came up to this point till this date. And this is one of the new books that is coming. Maybe by July it will be available. Some of the source codes of some of the books are available here. And also, if you like to see a very specific lecture materials for some books, we will be talking about different types of books here. And book chapter would be automatically included. So these are the lecture materials available on some official website. You can download from the instructor resources if you buy this book. So based on this thing, I'd be telling my experience. So it's a different issue for different people. I cannot say that I have this only one guideline for somebody who wants to write books and book chapters, but this would be my own years of experience, at least 12 years by now. So let's go through this thing and what we have here. First thing is, I asked myself when I started all these things, why publish a book? So I pointed out, or I just noted a few points here. You see, some people may like to add CV bullet points, like it makes your CV heavy. Then academic or professional reasons, maybe it's required in some institutes. Publishing own thoughts in any area, sharing knowledge and experience, recording current trends for future use, maybe passing time with something productive that you can, maybe like me, you can show after 10 years, 12 years, and that could be some proof that you didn't simply waste your time. Competition could be there among the colleagues. Somebody wrote a book, so you want to write another book. And some people may be motivated by money, but in reality, it's very difficult because books basically do not make you rich. It's kind of an effort that gives you something based on the book sales. Sometimes the royalty is there, and some publishers do not even pay anything. It's just they publish it free. That's why you go with them. So it may not be a proper motivation, but some people are still with this motivation. And show off could be another thing. So the first question that you have to answer is, what's your motivation? So set a motivation, then you can find other things to do and you can go on. Now, basically, I was asked to talk about how to write book chapters, but book chapter is a very, when we talk about books, automatically the chapter issues would come. So I prefer to go through these things. Let's continue. So the first thing that you have to do if you have any idea, you have to set a theme of the book. More or less, this is known, and you have to set a title, overview, then table of contents or table of contents, possible contributors. This is very important. If this is kind of edited book, we'll see the types of books soon, and supplementary materials if you want to provide something. All these issues, one by one, will be talked about. So we have four slides here, board slides. So we'll see what these things are. Set a timeline, choose a publisher, or you can have sometimes some invitation. Why I put this thing here? Because sometimes you can choose a publisher and then you can approach them for with a proposal. Another thing is sometimes the publishers can reach you and they can invite you to write a book that they will publish freely. So if you have an invitation, that's better. Okay, I think there is some noise coming. If somebody mutes all the, uh, some sound is coming from somebody's uh, computer. Okay, so this is the thing. You have to set the theme of the book, then choose a publisher. If the publisher is not chosen, sometimes it could be based on invitation, then you have to respond to the invitation. It doesn't come at the first stage. Initially, people actually have to approach the publishers by themselves. Now, there could be two types of books. One type is authored, that you write on your own, and there could be other co-authors. You can take two, three, four, as many as you need. Usually four authors, five authors could be fine. But for edited volume, this is about a collection of chapters, and this is where the chapter writing comes. The editors also can contribute some chapters. It can happen that when you ask or call for chapters around the globe, many people basically give proposals. Some proposals are good, some are bad, and some people actually do not show up next time, the second time, or whatever, when you start collecting all the materials. So edited volume is one way, and authored volume is another way. I have both types of books, so I can talk about both. And a question here that I put is, which one is easier? In general, nothing is easier because both of these things have their own advantages and disadvantages. Take, for instance, the authored volume. In case of authored volume, you have to write the entire thing. So it's very time consuming. Sometimes it's not rewarding that much unless you get some kind of recognition. And we'll see some example that in some cases you can have some good book that could be recognized. In many cases, authored volumes are not really going anywhere. It's just your own publication. In case of edited volumes, if the edited volume is good enough or something related to the most recent research topics, it can be very valuable because the PhD students may seek for that particular book. Libraries can buy, many universities can take, and basically researchers use those latest information. And edited volume has the problem is like many people would be communicating with you, so many emails, then you have to collect so many documents. Some people are lazy, you have to push them. So it's kind of good communication needed. And at the end, you need some edited volume with various types of chapters combined together. And sometimes it's very difficult to find a common theme because people write on different issues, even in the same area. While this is one factor, another factor is like uh, multiple people can write the same thing in different ways, and there could be redundancy. So, for a successful edited book, that also requires some kind of skill. When this is authored, this is under your control, but when this is edited, you collect different chapters from different people from different geographical regions. Then those people can have different mentalities and they may not really follow your guidelines. So that could be a challenge. So nothing is easier. Both I feel that if you can do well, anything is fine. A third type is available for book. In this case, you can be a general chair, for instance, for a conference. Not all conferences, but in some conferences, they basically collect the papers as chapters and they combine those things as a book. We will see an example. Recently, we got some recognition about this thing. So some examples could be LNCS volume. They have a number from Springer, just like that from EAI or Springer, they have NNICST, and some some of the various conference proceedings, which are sometimes given ISBNs or International Standard Book Number, and there are some book series as well, like artificial intelligence book series, networking series. Different people propose different book names, different titles. They are also combining different conference materials, and that could be a third type. So in general, we have two types. One extra type from conference. This is not for everybody. The other two could be for anybody. So the point is where to start. Let's say you want to write a book or edit a book. First thing is writing a book proposal. The question is where to get this proposal thing. The best thing you can do is you can search online. Just go to Google, search book proposal form, then the publisher name. I'm not mentioning any publisher name if not needed. I may mention a few, but not promoting anybody. So you have to find that particular link, and usually a PDF file or doc or MS Office file will be given, and you can get a form like book proposal form. And when you see that, this is always self-explanatory. Now the question is, once you fill in all those blanks, answer all the questions, where to submit? There could be two submission options. One is the form can have some email address. Another is there could be another form, web form, website, where you have to go and you have to input your details, your idea, then somebody would communicate with you. And in case of invitation, you don't have to go through all those two options. You just have to reply, yes, I want to write a book or edit a book, then they will guide you. But the key thing about book writing, any kind of, is basically I'm mentioning in my field, ICT and computer science and engineering. Main thing is you need to have enough patience. Why? Because the publishers, you have to know this thing, all the publishers have a common tendency that if you knock them, if you communicate with them very frequently, they would be very disturbed. This is my understanding. I understand that after submission of a proposal, at least give 15 days because they are very busy people. sometimes they willingly delay. And if you are the first time editor or author, they may willingly check your patience. This is another understanding I got. Like they can reply quite late, like you emailed today. They got the thing, and then they would say, "We'll be getting back to you." After 1 month, you get a reply. Within that time, it's better you have a patience. Just give it some time. Then it settles in. And another thing is sometimes the publishers can ask you some counter questions. You have one idea, they would give you some other um, websites or some other available books, contents, and ask you about like what is special in your proposal. And you have to defend that with patience. So that's those are the key tips for starting a writing of books, and of course you're dealing with book chapters within that. So let's go one by one. What's in a proposal? And I'd be just putting my own understanding. The title of the book, many people say that don't judge a book by its cover, like its title and other things. But I'd not really agree on this particular statement. Not always, because in many cases, from my 23, 24 books, but I understand the title matters. I'm not mentioning which book, but some books, just because of the catchy title, if this is attractive, people buy. And when I see, let's say, my royalty statement, it's clear something made an impact because of its title. And a very good book, just because of its title, somehow was not sold in that huge amount like the other one. So wrong title can diminish the impact of the book for even its market demand. For instance, here's one example. Fundamentals of cybersecurity or practical cybersecurity. These things would be sounding better than simply cybersecurity or security in cyberspace. So if you make like fundamentals of cybersecurity, some people who are teaching this subject, they may think that, oh, this is a textbook. Let's get this one. And if somebody is a developer, practical cybersecurity, oh, it may have some practical information that I don't know. So you just go to some pages, and if there is something attractive, you will go for that book. So this matters. Instead of generic title, you have to be more specific. Close title to an already impactful book may put your book down. This is one factor. People may consider it to be fake or of low quality. And when proposal is made, at least find three possible titles. Publishers basically ask for that. All of those things try to be as specific as possible that reflects the theme of the book. Try to search the internet for similar book titles in the same area. Try to avoid those similar titles. That's about the first thing in the proposal when you set the title. Then the overview, basically the central theme, what the book would be, what's the content. For proposal acceptance, this is very critical. While the book can allow a wide range of topics, all of those must be combined under the central theme, which would also be reflected with the title of the book. The reviewer would mainly judge this section of your proposal. When the proposal is sent to the reviewer, whenever you submit a proposal, by the way, it goes to some book reviewer. I review lots of books and a lot of books, and it comes from all publishers. And this is like blind review. Nobody knows my name. So I got even famous people's book proposals. Some of those things, like if you have, like it's not like any bias and thing, just because of the theme and the title, there could be some opinions from me or some other reviewers, but reviewers would always look for the content of the book. If the book is similar to something else that is already available, then it may not be given enough marks or enough points for its acceptance. So overview is also important. Third thing is table of contents. It's very tricky because you can set an outline, definitely, divide the contents into parts and chapters, but based on the type of book, it can have different styles. If this is authored volume, the sequence of topics should be known. You know that how to put those things and what are the contents. But for edited book, here's the tricky part. If you have a proposal that requires call for chapters that many people go through or use, they get the approval from the publisher, then they invite their colleagues, use different email lists, different researchers forums, and they ask for contributions from all over the globe. In this case, if this would be the final outcome of a combined list of chapters, those would be contributed by maybe 40 other authors from 12 different countries or 20 different countries, then it's very tricky and you would not have a table of contents. In fact, nowadays, in recent times, some publishers are not accepting this kind of proposal. Like when you have the need for call for proposals, then you would be randomly choosing the chapters among the submitted chapters. So what you have to do when you write a proposal that requires people's contributions, at least write the tentative chapter titles. And final outcome may be different, no problem. But if you mention at least, let's say, 10 different chapters, possible titles, and following the central theme of the book, then this is fine. And this is a very critical issue, like many promise but do not submit in time. I face this kind of problem, like let's say you are counting on some chapter to come in time, but those people can have other issues. They can change their plan. And this is another one. Some may withdraw at a later time, and that creates a huge problem. Like you accepted some chapter, but suddenly they decided to make it a journal paper, and they will not be continuing with the book anymore. In these cases, you have to be patient and you have to find out some alternatives, and if possible, fill in those gaps by your own contribution. So it makes it difficult sometimes. Reality of these things needs to be taken into consideration. For either type, you may combine chapters under common headings, put as separate parts in the book. So this is about table of contents. This is up to your skill, how you manage this thing. Then for authored volume, this is not an issue, but you may take co-authors. Um, the possible contributors would be your own circle or yourself. But for edited volume, as mentioned, once the tentative list is prepared, you have to uh, in person invite people to approach different people from different geographical regions, and there could be open call for chapters, and then find out what are the suitable proposals, and they would be submitting the full chapters. You have to go through the review process, or you have to send those for reviews. And primarily, you have to make a proposal. As mentioned, even if you accept the proposals and line up all the possible chapters, finally, those final chapters may not come back. They may simply vanish. So that's a real issue that you have to deal with. Again, another thing is during mentioning the possible contributors in the proposal form, if you use some false names or names without consent, that could be very detrimental and would make the proposal questionable. Like a practical example could be like this. Somebody wrote a book proposal, and for the section where possible contributor list should be put, somebody wrote my name as the confirmed author that I would contribute something. But eventually, that proposal came to me from the publisher as a reviewer. Like I'm the reviewer now of that proposal. So if I see my own name mentioned and my consent was not taken, definitely that would be making the entire proposal questionable. Some people do that because they feel that by this they would maybe gain something, but you have to be very careful in putting the names of other people. So if you don't have a possible number of contributors, that should be also mentioned. Some publishers do not allow that, and some people, publishers, like to have a potential list of authors, and that would suffice. The other part is supplementary material. In edited volumes that are mainly for research materials or research related issues, you may not need this thing. But in case of textbooks, I have also textbook. I'll show you some example. PowerPoint slides, PDF files, supporting data files, audio files, video, animations, then website links. These may be provided as the supplementary materials. Especially for textbooks, supplementary materials may be needed. And often it is considered a must. People would be expecting this one. Some may ask for lecture materials for easy delivery. Like recently, one of my books became a textbook in some US university or some universities. And eventually, when people started buying that in Saudi Arabia, in some other countries, they asked for the lecture materials. And initially, it was not in our plan, but we had to prepare all those PDF files, basically PowerPoint files, and provide to the publisher. So we'll be seeing some example later. Then the next thing is in the proposal, you have to mention some timeline. This is critical, and people have different reaction times. So once you invite somebody, some people can reply your email within 2 days, some people within 6 hours, some people within half an hour. So people have different reaction times. They are lazy, some people are very prompt, some people keep their words, some people do not, some people have other issues. And there are some common excuses like I was busy, my health issues, my child got this problem, and I was relocating, this kind of things. So you have to deal with people basically. So you have to be careful about the timeline. Take a bit longer time than that you calculate. This is one strategy that I apply. If I need 7 days, I take, let's say, minimum 10 days. If I need 15 days, I need, or I mentioned 20 days. It's always better to provide your materials earlier than the agreed deadline. Not missing deadline is a key professionalism required. This is one thing many people basically do not understand. They think that if I delay and if I show that I'm busy and these things, publishers don't like this because sometimes they have a very tight market analysis that they have to release a book, and they basically um, publicize that on all over the internet even before it is coming, without the book cover even, and they expect that in time. If you deliver things later, even if you delay 20 days, 1 month, then they would not be giving you the next uh, contract maybe, and that would affect your professionalism. Even if the royalty amount is set, sometimes 10%, it could be 20%. In some cases, people are given even 20% of royalty. As I mentioned, it's not about money, but it's still like after 2 3 years, you get some uh, money that is coming from the publisher based on the sales, and that actually gives you some delight. In fact, I didn't ever know that the books produce money. The first royalty I got for my first book that was published in 2010, I got maybe in 2013 or 14. So 3 or 4 years later, the first time I got that royalty. So it's not about money, but the thing is, when the professionalism is questioned, everything would be affected, including that amount, whatever that is. And for edited volumes, many authors do not work or return materials in time. I also got similar case, like some people got acceptance of a chapter, and then simply they vanished. They did not submit the camera ready chapters at all. And that puts the entire thing into serious jeopardy because it can delay your publication, and how you would fill that gap. That is a question, because when you sign a contract, it can have a certain page limit, and you're counting every page. If a chapter has 30 pages in books format, you'll be losing that 30 pages. So from where it would come? For authored volume, the best, as I would suggest, if you have some idea, like you have a book that is completely authored, at least do 80% work, then approach a publisher. Like all the chapters, all the things are written, then go for the proposal making. Otherwise, if you take the proposal, a timeline, and in many cases, I found people fail to meet the timeline. Even my co-authors, they like nothing has been done, just the idea, and they got a contract, and 1 year was given, maybe even 2 years were given, but they failed to complete the task. So for authored volume, I suggest at least doing 80%, then get the proposal 20% that could be done within the contract timeline. Maintaining schedule is mainly an attitude issue. Many people willingly delay, and many people are like timely doers of things or very sincere in their task. So this is also a key issue about this thing. Now, other items that could be included are already we talked about the 3 titles, possible titles, but other things that you have to provide, like complete information, price, year of publication, publisher, number of pages if possible, of some other books that are related to this thing. Sound rationale for the proposal and what makes it superior than the other existing books. Target audience of the book, like who, where, how long. How long it will have the impact. You have to write these things in some para or paragraph. Tentative number of pages, that could be estimated, like you can count in a plain paper that if every chapter has 20 pages in A4 size, this format, in this format, this should be 300 pages. For instance, if I have such and such number of chapters. Biographies of the authors, editors, published books in the past, publication list, specific achievements clearly mentioned. These are also required for the proposal, and which publicity channels you would be using. Then list of potential reviewers of the book content. This is optional, but you can mention who would be your editorial team. That could be you yourself singly, or you can have a team, and you have to have some close friends who can quickly review for you some of the chapters. So it's actually human being dealing issue, but these extra materials or items may also be added with the proposal. Now, once it is done, um, submit it to the publisher. Now, submission may be, as we mentioned, it could be to a generic email address like editor at such and such dot org, such and such dot com. This is a generic email address. But in many cases, you'd find that some publishers have multiple editors in different areas, and they deal with different subjects. So you have to approach a particular individual for submitting your proposal. And the best thing, as I mentioned, search book proposal form on the internet using the publisher's name. You'd get some form, just follow the steps, and they will then guide you. One thing that should be also mentioned is always attach your CV. Always consider that publisher may not know you. Why I put this thing? Because I was working with some publisher for quite long time, but it happens that many times, many a times they change the handling editor, or as they mention the title like acquisition editor. So book publishing editor. So each time when you put or include your CV in the proposal email, that makes it easier for them to recognize who you are. And accordingly, they would evaluate your proposal. Submitting the proposal, patience is a key. Publishers do not like repetitive query emails. I already mentioned this thing. Sometimes approval may take even 6 months or more. Often publishers are linked with each other, hence do not submit the same proposal to multiple publishers. This is one thing some people do by mistake or not knowing enough, because the same book proposal reviewer may be contacted by more than one publisher at the same time. Then you'd have a real trouble. The reviewer will simply reject both. It happens. Like somebody chose publisher one, somebody chose publisher two, at the same time submitted the proposal to two publishers, and they contacted the same reviewer. He got from two sources. Eventually, that would be cancelled. Now, point to note, quality does make a difference for all points discussed so far. Now, the question is how to measure this quality. Quality can vary, and we cannot basically judge the quality of book just by its cover or initial content. And there are lots of questions. What is the standard of a book, standard of book chapter, all these things? It can be audience dependent, time dependent, place dependent, publisher dependent. Some people can promote their works, some people cannot. Sometimes institutions promote somebody's work and do not promote others' works. So the point is how to understand the quality. One understanding could be uh, that we can rely on the publisher's um, fame, like the quality or the standard of the publisher. So, where is the impact factor? In book case, there is no impact factor like journal papers, or for book chapters, there's nothing called impact factor. Is there any? Is this any matter for book chapter? No, in book chapters case, there's nothing called citation index and this kind of thing. But there's something I'd mention later. Then how to measure the impact? Who decides what decides? Publishers quality automatically assigns a quality level for a book. Now I can mention a specific name, for instance. At least if you publish something from IEEE, or let's say from Wiley or Wiley, whatever you pronounce, then from Springer, from Taylor and Francis, then Tata McGrew-Hill, then there are different publishers available. Maybe people know about these names more or less. But if you, let's say, get a publisher like uh, Bangla Bazaar publisher, this is available in our local market. This is not something that would go to the international market. So publishers level, name, fame, standard automatically assigns some quality level. And then comes the content and other things. How those are measured, we will see soon. Now, to choose a publisher, it is tricky. You can have some idea that I would go for a quality or standard publisher, but there are two ways to proceed. Sign a contract before starting the work, do full or partial work, and then get publisher to sign a contract. Whoever you contact among the publishers. Both ways have benefits and risks. How? Because if you sign a contract, you are time bounded. You have to deliver the work within that deadline. If you have a partial work and then you get a publisher and sign the contract, then you have a short time. But sometimes people get lazy. They think that I have 80% books content already ready, and then they find trouble in finishing it in a nicer way or nice way. 20% becomes very difficult. Let's look at the matter of quality again. Quality often depends on choice. Sometimes you can have a very good material, but you can go for a below standard publisher to publish it. How? By mistake, or you may not know enough, or you may not know enough. Maybe you want to publish it quickly, that a quality publisher may not allow you to. So you have to give enough time. Some people get impatient. They think that why my email is not even replied. And there could be other factors like you can have your own choice. You choose some publisher, hidden agenda, like you like some publisher, don't like, less courageous, you don't know the level of your work and you go for a lower level. It has happened that many good works were underrated, but later became something notable. So quality is a very tricky issue, but in any case, get a publisher of a standard name, go for the proposal. Books and book chapters are often not really reviewed like journal articles are. This is a key point. Journal articles have a very tough review in case of conferences as well. But in case of books and book chapters, it's all about your controlling of the thing. You are the author or you are the editor. Then you have to be careful about some other issues that may not be always done by the reviewers or those who help you in the selection process. We will be talking about that thing, but before that, once the proposal passes the publisher's board, it's you who is in control about what it could be at the end. So if you get a proposal acceptance, then how many chapters and other things, it's up to you. You can write your chapter in your own way. The key skill required for all these things would be good English. Spoken English doesn't help. So this is a common thing that I use for many other presentations. Writing skill is different. So you can be a good talker, but sometimes the writing skill could be poor. If edited volume, there is another extra trouble. English level must be ensured at some stage. Most of the work should be on your shoulder after getting chapters from contributors or authors. Like there are lots of non-English speaking countries. I'm not mentioning any name, but you know that some people have the first language definitely not English. They could be very good researchers, but some countries when they submit papers, there are lots of mistakes. And if you provide all those unedited, unchecked, poor English materials to the publisher, they would be very angry at you. In some cases, they actually ditch the entire contract. It also happens. Like you can have um, things from, okay, some names like China, Japan, even Spain, Brazil, they don't have the English as a first language. And in case of Indian subcontinent, overall Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, would say, or I would say, more or less, we have to go through some English curriculum and these things. More or less, we have kind of, I'd not say always, but overall, the English skill is much better than others. And if these things come from the English speaking countries, definitely you can get good materials, especially if you get chapter contributions from UK. For USA and Malaysia, for instance, there are lots of foreigners. They have some other non-native, like non-native stance, or they're not English-speaking guys. So this is one issue. You have to deal with the language issues, and there is no helper. In many cases, you have to do or deal with all the chapters in the book for the English. So sometimes you have to go through all the paragraphs. At least you have to skim through. It's a very tedious task. So selecting your contributors, especially for edited volume, is very important. If you select the standard guys, they would be doing that task for yourself. They will be providing already checked materials, and then your task will be easy. Another issue as an editor is tackling plagiarism. This is a serious issue. Even recently, I got some chapter submission for some book. I'm not mentioning that from somebody from USA, and that was basically a very good researcher as far as I know. But when that chapter came, I found that 98% of the content was published elsewhere. So 2% added. Uh, yes, in some cases, book chapters can be published multiple times. It can happen in the publisher's uh, world or arena. They don't mind about this thing if this is something impactful for greater dissemination and better visibility. It can happen. Like I have chapters that were included multiple times in other books. Sometimes these are called like encyclopedia in ICT, encyclopedia of networking. Then they took some other already published chapters. But when you are the editor, you have to be very careful about tackling plagiarism. Now, if you have access to professional plagiarism checking tools like Turnitin and iAuthenticate and DocuCheck, whatever the name is, then that would be easy. Otherwise, you have to manually check every para, copy every para, put on Google search, find the matches, and you have to be aware of the most recent writings and things. Sometimes you can detect even without searching that this is a low quality thing or this is a copied material. And one easy way to understand is sometimes some people submit a chapter and you find that the abstract has lots of grammatical mistakes and things. But when you go inside from para to para, suddenly the English is very good. It can indicate that many people actually copy many paragraphs. So what is the allowed limit of this thing? Plagiarism? It depends. For technical materials, it's also fine if you have 40% similarities, especially for book chapters. And if somebody has already a journal paper or conference paper, and he makes it a like book chapter, 50% similarity, that could be also tolerated because as mentioned, this is for greater dissemination and better visibility of the idea itself. And there could be extra contents for general readers who would go through the things and understand a particular topic. As for authored books or content, this is up to you and on your shoulder. You have to give proper credits to all who might have contributed, and how you do that, it's up to you. Reference style is very important. These things are sometimes ignored. Uh, in books case, if you have an authored volume, make sure the first occurrence of every abbreviation has the elaboration with it, because this is very critical so that the readers can go in sequence and they can refer to the particular meaning of a particular term and see the detailed guidelines in delivering the book items. Usually the publishers provide what are the extra materials like preface. You have to write something like, I'm thankful to this and that guy, acknowledgement, family, maybe almighty, and something like that. Preface your own feelings, what happened during COVID. I was busy and uh, suddenly you got this, and I'm very hopeful that this would be beneficial, this kind of thing. Then a table of contents, index terms. These are some keywords that you have to choose for different chapters. Biographies and addresses of the editors or authors. All images are separate files. This sometimes is tricky because sometimes you have graphs or some images that require color. Like there could be 2 or 3 lines, similar looking. One is blue, one is green, another is yellow. When this is published in a grayscale or black and white, simply the color becomes similar. And if they do not have distinctive characteristics like dashed line, dotted line, or straight line, or solid line, then there will be trouble. So you have to know in which color the book would be published. Many publishers do not allow color publishing because it increases the production cost, really problematic, and they go for simply grayscale. So you have to be compatible with this. You have to turn all the images into grayscale or ask the um, authors to take out color references. Like in a graph, they cannot use a color reference. They would be using the shape reference, like the dotted line shows this thing, the solid line shows this thing. And in this way, you can handle this thing. And if you have some graphics that require color, that's a problem. In that case, you have to have best image. And there is a way how you can convert a color image into a grayscale image. You
आज
can
रहे
go,
दोनों ने मेरे 1 घंटा खराब
okay, so um, the things you must know: use the most recent works if possible, use the references of famous works if possible. If conference versions, you have to take the better version. And there is a list of commonly agreed high visibility conferences. Emphasize on what you have accomplished. The book should be valid with the information for at least 5 years ahead, prediction, some kind of. So you have to be very careful about uh, how the contents are placed. You have to think how the impact would be after 5 years. Um, Usually, it is expected that after publication, it should be sellable at least for 5 years. This is the thing. So whenever you write a book chapter, also you have to keep in mind this thing, because this is not a journal paper or a conference paper, but book chapter would be talking about some generic issues that people can read and find some generic information, plus technical or some concrete um, scientific information from that thing. You have to keep it this in mind, like at least 5 years impact. A truth is when something is not recognized, it should be known that it has reason to be recognized. And what could be the thing? I mentioned this in some other presentation as well, that clear grammar error free English has no other alternative, and many fail in this point. So English is a very tricky thing. Yes, during the type setting stage and also during proof stage, they would help you a lot. But most of the things you have to do on your own. So this is one critical thing about English that you have to emphasize on. Now, if you write a chapter for your own book, or you contribute to some others, the same version from journal or conference can be submitted. We already talked about this thing: greater visibility and higher dissemination, or greater dissemination, higher visibility, whatever you use as the term. Extended and revised versions, usual case at least 30% enhancement in the content. See the rules and guidelines, make it more of tutorial-like. Chapters can have many extra words. You can make it as plain as possible for easy access of the knowledge. One word could be made in this way: a conference paper, a journal paper, and a chapter version. This is still allowed in our community. This is one way to utilize your work. During PhDs, if somebody is doing PhD, they can get extra publications like that. You have a conference, you then extend it and revise it and make it a journal paper, then making another 30% difference or 50% difference, you can make it a book chapter. And that is still allowed. And this is sometimes beneficial for your PhD and these things. Some people can have PhD ongoing, and also it basically transmits or um, spreads your written thing in more wider range. Does not fit in all cases, so you have to check the rules and regulations. Some books or book editors require only one uh, version of the chapter, like it should be very novel. It should not have been published in conference or journal before. And for edited volumes, emails to the authors, this is tricky. This is the human being dealing issue. Politeness is the key in writing replies and answering queries. Many do pledge or many propose, few do submit at the end. Personal invitations work much better than open call. Try to target renowned fellows on a particular field, even if the editor is not so known. The known guy would help the book's promotion. It happens, like in some of my books, some renowned people contributed. Just because of their inclusion, that book also went to different places. Let me see the time. We have already 1 hour. Okay, we will be finishing soon. Let's continue. Professionalism is in meeting and keeping deadlines, clear explanations of idea and replying to queries. It should be remembered that you are the one who wants to publish, hence humbleness is the key. Know your subject topic well to tackle any comments or critical query. Publishers often like to see things in their way. Make sure your idea is kept intact. They want to, and they may try to bend your theme of the book. So you have to be very strong in your rationale and defending your proposal. Getting contract is the primary goal, unless someone is famous and publishers come to them willingly. Once you get to a stage, at least in that particular area, automatically the publishers would come with different invitations. And then you just have to respond and go through the process. Otherwise, initially, getting some hold in the book publishing and book chapter publishing, you need to have some efforts. You need to give some efforts. Hence, it is better to agree with the given conditions, royalty percentage. Usually people, whenever some people ask for this royalty thing, like it's written, let's say 5% would be given initial book. Then some people express like disappointment that can really impact your future contracts. So sometimes the contract may not be even signed. So go with the initial easy flow, and eventually, if you stay in this course of action, eventually you get something in future. If you enjoy writing books, then monetary issues will be secondary. Personal work and consistency. This is nothing new, as you know. Do personal work, have some commitment, and you have to be having some clear motivation, consistency. Journal and conference papers do also help in publishing books and book chapters, because publishers can easily approach you. After some years, you may have enough articles to be sewed together or with a single thread to prepare a book. So if you have multiple conference and journal papers, you can also combine and make an authored volume. So chapters could be just simply coming from your conference and journal papers. Now let's see, we are actually near the end of the publication. Let's see some of my own books. I showed you this particular web page, all these things. Now, what is the recognition and quality? This is my first book. As you see, this is the security of self-organizing networks. I did it during I started it basically during my PhD thesis period. In fact, PhD sixth semester or something like that. But this was then included, as you see, as IEEE Communications Society's ComSoc Best Readings in Communications and Information Security, September 2013. So if you go to this particular link, it may take some time to load. This is a recognition, and this delights you. Initially, you see, I started in 2009. This was first published in 2010. Then it was republished in 2000, I think, 11, and then all copies were sold when it got included here. Then they published maybe 2015 edition. So this is one thing that may not be recognized initially, but as you see, this is CRC Press. The publisher standard initially gave it some weight. And you see, this is still here, best readings in communications and information security, system security, evaluation committee. These are the, at the time, if you see, these are some of the renowned names in our field. They were the selectors of the things. And you can see this book, for instance, and this book, and this book. So 3 books got included in this best reading topics. Once you get this kind of recognition from IEEE ComSoc, this is the Communication Society, then automatically you would have some impact in the society or on the society. Likewise, this one, Intel Corporation's recommended reading list for developers. It was included twice in second half 2013 and first half 2014. So this is for these developers. There are some contents that could be used by the professionals who are dealing with wireless sensor networks for actual implementation and practical studies. It was done during 2010-11, came out later, then it was included in the Intel Corporation's recommended reading list. Likewise, this one, very recently, I talked about the third type of book. This is the collection of conference materials. Even in this case, editing has some skills or some skills required. This book got indexed in Elsevier's Scopus database, one thing, but recently it was recognized by, as you see, top used publications on Springer Link that concern one or more of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs 2020, SDG 7, affordable and clean energy. They have around 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals 2020. You may not agree with all these things, but in any case, under this category, this book was treated, and it was one of the most downloaded and used books for this meeting and related things. So this is a recognition as well. This one is very recent. This is the textbook. This is an authored book. This is not edited anyway. This particular guy, Dr. Kutub Thakur, he's in USA. He's a faculty member there. But it got approved as a textbook from fall 2020 semester. So this is now taught, as I mentioned, in some Saudi universities, also Bangladeshi universities. I also teach in my course some of the contents from this one. And once this was published, when people asked about supplementary materials, then we provided all those PPT slides and things. We already talked about those things, instructor resources. Eventually, the publishers also helped. And if you go to this link, for instance, this is, I think, Amazon, but it has a publisher's website. Just giving you some examples how these things are done and kept. If this is a textbook, you need to have the resources available. And once you give to the publisher, they can put it just like this, support material. And if you click that, then you get this particular page. If you have login name, password, and you buy this book, then they would allow downloading, something like that. So this is another recognition. In other cases, as we mentioned about the quality of books and things, book chapters, there's one index from Clarivate Analytics under the Web of Science that is called Book Citation Index. Recently, many other books got included, and it took several years. How? Because when people start using your books, all the chapters are cited in different journals and conferences, then automatically they consider those books, and you can check these online. Not all books, I have 24 books, but 4 got included in the Book Citation Index. And these are some of the recognitions. I have, as I mentioned, 24, including one that got translated into simplified Chinese language. But out of 24, 14 got at least some kind of recognition. So these are the things that would not come straight. You have to wait for 5 years. Sometimes after 10 years, you would get some impact, and they would notify you about this impact. So these are some of the cases of success. And as these things are about books, when you write book chapters, this is already included. Like your book chapters simply can come from your conference and journal papers. That's it. There's no special treatment needed unless you make it more readable, tutorial style, so that people can easily go through your content and understand things in a very plain and easy term. So that's it. Thank you very much. I'm not expanding my talk anymore. And that's it. We will be ending here. If you have any query now, you can probably ask me, or I think you can email me later if you have anything. So that's the end of my presentation. I don't want to elongate it anymore. I think that's the end of the time. Is there anybody? Who may be someone is handling this talk? Dr. Meenakshi Sharma. I think that's the end of the presentation. I don't have anything else to talk about.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. Is there any query? So, yes, dear students.
If there is no query, they can email me anytime. I think that would be.
Yeah. If any student have any query, then they can be mailed to our professor. He will be definitely give you the answer within a day or 2 days. So thank you so much, Professor, Saki, for you have given the how they can be published their chapters and the publication. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. So I'm stopping the sharing, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, that's it. All of you take care. Bye.
Bye, sir. Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you, sir.